Good evening, fellow Americans. When we think of the super rich, we think of people like Bill Gates, Donald Trump, Oprah. But people who made their fortune honestly, like them, represent only 10% of the super rich. The other 90% made it quickly on Wall Street by swindling investors. Top people in the big banks make up the lion's share, and it was the big banks that created the recession in 2008. Which big banks am I talking about, you ask? Here's a list of the biggest players. Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Lehman Brothers, Merrill Lynch, Bear Stearns, Bank of America, Chase, Citibank, Wells Fargo, Countrywide, Wachovia, IndyMac, Deutsche Bank, Credit Suisse, UBS, AIG. The small local banks we have around here are the good guys. The following is a simplified example of how the top people in the big banks turned $150,000 house into $2,350,000 of cash for bonuses for them. Here goes. I want to buy a $150,000 house. Chase gives me a loan that is designed to cause foreclosure, but I don't know that. They immediately sell my loan to your 401k fund, but remain the servicer of my loan. Chase also buys an insurance policy from AIG, which will pay them $150,000 if I default on my loan. Because it is a shadow market, a secret market, a black market, Chase also buys another insurance policy from Bear Stearns, which will pay them another $150,000 if I default on my loan. So here's where each party is. I now have a $150,000 house, and I'm paying $700 per month to Chase. Chase transfers my payment to your mutual fund every month and has two insurance policies which pay them $150,000 each if I default on my payment. Your 401k has my loan and is now receiving my payment. Everybody is happy. 2 years later, Chase resets my loan to $3,000, which I can't pay. Chase then forecloses on my house and auctions it off for $100,000. But Chase then collects the $150,000 from AIG and $150,000 from Bear Stearns. That adds up to a total of $400,000 from my house. They can do this because those insurance policies were actually a new product Wall Street created called credit default swaps, which were not regulated at all, so the state insurance requirements didn't apply. If it is called an insurance policy, it is regulated. If it is called a swap, it is not regulated. Isn't that amazing? But suppose Chase bought swaps from 15 banks instead of 2. Then Chase would collect $2,250,000 from the other banks and $100,000 from auctioning off my house. That is a total of $2,350,000, and it's all legal. Pretty smart, huh? Now do you understand why the big banks didn't want to allow homeowners to refinance their homes? Refinancing makes no money for them. So why were they able to get away with this, you ask? Around the year 2000, Congress passed a new law which permitted derivatives. What the heck is a derivative? Well, a derivative is just a bet on something. Pretend you are a farmer and you grow green beans. Spend a lot of money growing them and want them to stay healthy so you can sell them and make money. You can buy an insurance policy to compensate you for your loss if it does not rain or if you have a crop failure. That insurance policy is just a bet that pays you for your lost expenses. You can do it with oil, mortgages, beans, rice, almost anything. The Wall Street swindlers came out with the idea that you don't have to own the thing you're betting on, You can just bet. That bet is called a derivative. You can also make bets on other bets. Those were called synthetic derivatives. The Wall Street banksters knew what they were doing, but clearly Congress did not. At this point, most people are thinking that it can't get any worse. Not true. Remember your 401k fund that bought my mortgage from Chase? Well, because I was unable to pay the $3,000 payment, your fund lost $150,000 because they can't even sell my loan now. It's worthless. So does your fund take the loss? Absolutely not. They pass it on to you because you were tricked into agreeing to risk. Because you agreed to risk, you can't sue them. When you bought into the fund owners immediately take their 50% right off the top and then gamble with the rest. They never lose. You do. Still think it can't get any worse? Wrong again. The big banks did not have the cash to pay the claims on those insurance policies, called credit default swaps, because they were not required to keep reserves of cash to pay those claims. Remember, they are swaps, not insurance. Of course, the banksters didn't own any stock in their banks, so it was easy to claim bankruptcy and let the stockholders take the loss. Henry Paulson, Secretary of Treasury and former Goldman Sachs CEO, tricked Congress into giving the big banks $780 billion of our tax money to bail out the big banks, called TARP. Troubled Asset Relief Program. That's TARP. They invent a tricky name to impress us, make it sound legitimate. See, the big banks were considered too big to fail because that would cause another Great Depression. It worked flawlessly. The taxpayer wound up paying all those credit default swaps, which then funded $142 billion, with a B, billion, in bonuses for those top Wall Street bank people. Thank you for listening, and God bless you all, because you're going to need a lot of God's blessings.